What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Movie Emporium's spoiler-filled review of Cobra Kai Season 4, which now has premiered on Netflix. Now, before we begin, if you like this video, awesome, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium, hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like any of the videos, awesome, hit that like button, as well as commenting below on any videos you watch, including this one. Okay, so I hope the year that is coming to a close is going well for you guys. It is now December 31st. Of course, Cobra Kai Season 4 has now premiered, and I want to talk about it in a spoiler sense, so be warned. Spoilers, if you have not watched the series, please watch the series and then come back and watch this review. Or discussion, any explains, whatever you want to call it. So, Cobra Kai Season 4, as I said in my video of the non-spoiler sense, I didn't like at all. Well, I mean, I like some of it, but most of it was pretty bad because it repeats the same mistakes as Season 3, and it really feels like Netflix has run out of ideas already and what to do with the series. But the things I didn't like about it were the continuation of certain characters and their kind of beef with one another, and other characters and their beef with one another, and then they eventually go to the All Valley tournament again, and it plays out like that. It's the same stuff over and over and over. I mean, that's where I'll kind of leave it at when it comes to non-spoiler sense, but this series, of course, is taking place right after Season 3. We have Gianni and Daniel Larusso basically teaming up together to save their dojos from Cobra Kai. Whoever wins the All Valley tournament will basically be able to keep doing karate. The other ones have to kind of disband in a lot of aspects. So I thought that was kind of an interesting way to keep the premise going. Yes, they're doing the All Valley tournament again. Yes, they're repeating the same ideas and so on and so forth. But you're bringing Kreese into the mix, and of course there was a stinger where he talks to Terry Silver, who is the main character in this season at least. And this season starts off exactly what I was worried about. It basically sees Daniel and Gianni at each other's throats again. You can tell that these two individuals still have not learned anything, and it really shows. This is a story that basically has these two individuals with two different ideas on what karate is, completely just kind of yelling at each other, and then at some point they fight with one another. And at some point in this series they need to just work together. At the very end of the Season 4 they eventually do work together, but they just need to work together, or they just need to do something, because it's now tired and tiresome and boring. Because as the season runs along, the different characters, the different young kids switch sides, who they want to work with. We see, of course, Samantha kind of wanting to go work with Gianni and his dojo Eagle Fang, and of course Daniel Larusso, who I've never thought was a good person, kind of doing his thing about defense, and of course Johnny's on offense. And you would think that they would work together to kind of find a common even ground, but that's not what happens in this 4th season. It's just the same infighting over and over and over. They eventually break up, and they eventually go on their separate ways, and different groups go with them. Miguel goes with, of course, Gianni. Hawk and Dimitri, or whatever his name is, goes with them, and Samantha's just kind of twisted between the two sides, and it's just boring. It really is. I love Ralph Macchio. I love what William Zabka is doing in this series, but you gotta progress these characters forward. Even the wife of Daniel LaRusso's character is you guys just need to figure out your problems. You need to move forward. And she's almost like our conscience when we're watching this series. Almost like the writers realize they need to have a character that explains this, because she is, throughout this entire 4th season, just that kind of individual that just sees through our eyes, realizes that these two individuals are grown men. They're not 18 years old anymore. They got to stop fighting with one another. They're going to lose their dojos if they don't go and compete well with Cobra Kai. And it's just why this keeps happening is so frustrating. This is why I gave this season a 6 out of 10, because I don't care about their infighting anymore. They're not well-written characters anymore. They're cartoon characters now. They're just individuals that have so much pent-up anger. It's when they brought in Elizabeth Shue in the last season, she kind of got them both together, and she became kind of close with both of them, and kind of made them see that they needed to work together. And we saw how they were going against Terry Kreese. I mean, it was an interesting way to continue the series, but then it just resorts back to the same infighting, and it just is so boring. It really is so boring. And there's a lot of people that have been in my non-spoiler review going, what happens to these characters? What happens to these characters? This is the problem with this show, is these characters are just doing the same thing. And it really shows, and it really is a problem. And these writers need to do something about these characters. And I think the end of this 4th season, which I'll get into when I get to a point the ending explains, I think is interesting. I think it could go a new way, but I think they're just going to go back to the All Valley tournament in the 5th season. And at that point, I just want the series to end because it's not worth it anymore. It really isn't. It's just, you're more rooting for the bad guys because they're more interesting. And even they have their weaknesses and stuff like that. It's really, really boring, to be fairly honest. But there are moments in the season where they actually train on each other's sides to kind of, Daniel Larusso tries to train with Eagle Fang, trying to learn offense, and of course Gianni trains defense, and we see the different styles, which is kind of cool. And there's a point where, Johnny's doing the wax on stuff, or the paint defense type of stuff, and that's really fun. And there's a point where they're at a hockey game, and Daniel Larusso uses his kind of karate and stuff like that, and that's really cool. And there are moments that it's fun, and it's like what you remember with Cobra Kai. It just needs to continue with something different. That's my personal opinion. That's why I love the series, but it's just frustrating. And then it leads into the kid stuff, which is the exact same problem. Again, there is the same infighting. This time we have like Hawk and, some other characters that are now on the good side. And we have Robbie and, Tori and who are the other kids are on the Cobra Kai side. And they're constantly pulling pranks and they're told not to fight with one another to All Valley. And yet they keep fighting with each other. And they fight at a pool party, after prom. And they are at prom and they're back and forth with one another. I think, the young girl who plays Samantha Larusso is absolutely infuriating in this series because she's an individual that got put through a lot of stuff because of Tori's character. And in this series, she's like Tori's character, where she's a complete asshole, complete a-hole, just a jerk, and just it shows. And there's points where Hawk is a jerk and so on and so forth, and it's just like they're supposed to be the good characters, but they're doing the bad character stuff. And then you got like Robbie, who's so conflicted because he's so angry with his father, the William Zabka Johnny character, but he's just doing the same thing over and over and over. And then the one character that actually has some growth, who I worry is just gonna completely fall back onto the wayside, is Tori. Who somebody was asking me about Tori, and Tori's an individual who has a lot of darkness to her. She has a lot of stuff she's going through, and she has a really interesting storyline. What makes this series at least a 6 is her storyline is doing everything to help her sick mother. She basically threatens Samantha Larusso's character, as she always does. She's kind of a jerk. She's starting a relationship which she ends up falling through with Robbie's character. But there's a thing that's with the Amanda Larusso character, like I was talking about earlier, where Tori is confronted by Amanda Larusso at her job. She gets fired. She basically somehow, Amanda Larusso's character becomes kind of a surrogate mother to Tori, even though she has a mother. She's trying to help her, and we see Tori's cracks starting to show, the seams starting to show, and I really like that about her character because it allows her to be more dimensional, be less of a jerk, be less of a confrontational individual. Yes, she's still on the bad side, but she wants to win the All Valley tournament because she's never won anything. She's never had anything good happen in her life, and even though it's a stereotype and she's having Samantha Larusso coming after her, it was nice to see Amanda Larusso's character really care for somebody that may not be on the good side, and we start to see kind of a little bit of growth for Tori's character. And at the very end, which I'll get into the ending explains, there's a thing where I think her character is going to be a completely different kind of individual in season 5 that's going to kind of change the whole thing, dynamic of the story of her character. But I like that she gets a relationship with Robbie. Robbie's kind of the badass character outside of Miguel, who I'll talk about in a second. But she has some really, really good moments that really affect her character. And like I said, Robbie has his moments, and he has an interesting payoff at the end, and so on and so forth, with the character that is Hawk and all that good stuff. But then there's like Hawk and Dimitri. Hawk is an individual that was a jerk and a complete a-hole, as we know from the couple seasons. He's now come on the good side because he realizes his mistakes, but he still does some stupid things that show off his kind of badass side. And he one day is getting a tattoo, or he's at the doctor or whatever, and some of the Cobra Kai people because Kreese is like, we have to get back, we have to fight him back. Johnny's doing the same thing, and it gets to a point where Hawk is in this hospital, or this whatever he's in, and they shave his mohawk off, and it makes him a lesser person. And it takes Moon, and of course Dimitri has, you know, the girlfriend that was the real jerkish girl. She's now his, you know, his girlfriend, very sweet, so on and so forth. But Moon's character was always a friend to Hawk, kind of, you know, loved Hawk in a certain way. She tells him, and he kind of learns that he needs to just kind of be who he needs to be. The Mohawk isn't who he represents, and he's a much more, you know, much more dimensional character in that aspect. It doesn't mean he's given a lot to do. It doesn't mean he's given a lot to work with, but I think it's an interesting kind of pull. So the kids, even though they're doing the same infighting, which I don't like now, I think they should just be done with it, really kind of has some interesting dimensions on a personal level that I do like. I think it's really interesting. And then we have the introduction to Kenny, which is this young kid who is the brother of one of the kids that's in jail for the incident with Robbie and stuff like that. I think breaking into Larusso's dealership or something like that. I can't remember offhand, but Kenny's a complete nerd. He loves playing RPGs. He loves playing the World of Warcraft and stuff like that. He's created, there's this game that's in it that he really enjoys. And Anthony Larusso, who's the son of Daniel Larusso, is with a couple friends who are basically turned into bullies. I really don't like Anthony LaRusso's character at all in this season, but they need to give him some dynamic because he was just kind of, you know, that kid in the background, the brother or sister or whatever, and he starts picking on Kenny and starts doing the bully stuff, starts showing kind of the ticks of how Daniel LaRusso is, because Daniel LaRusso, to be fairly honest, kind of did a lot of stuff to Gianni. It was really messed up, and Gianni fought back, and you know how that works. So Johnny's more sympathetic than people want to give him a lot of credit for in those original movies. But Kenny is constantly bullied. He's constantly picked on, and it takes Robbie and a couple other people to get him to join Cobra Kai. And then Kenny's character takes a turn to a real negative stereotype. He's a stereotype already because he's being picked on. He's an African American kid, and then he's, you know, turns into another stereotype. And I guess that's fine because now Anthony LaRusso, you know, as the series finally concludes in the season, he becomes the kid who gets picked on by the bully, which is now Kenny, who warns him that he's going to be mercilessly picked on during high school and stuff like that. And it's just the back and forth with that storyline I really don't like. I think Kenny could have been a really interesting character to come into the mix, to maybe see and find his way, but now he's just kind of turned into a very stereotypical angry kid fighting on the wrong side and whatever. I hope season 5 brings more out of Kenny, but I don't think it will. I think this is just a character that they wanted more dimension to the kids, and they didn't really get it with this character. So we'll see what happens with this character. We'll see what happens with Anthony LaRusso, who does have a turn and becomes more of a normal kid as the story goes along. But throughout this season, you know, like I said, Kenny's constantly being belated and berated by all the people around him, and it's a complete mess. It's just, you know, what it is. So, and then finally you have Miguel, who is now on the good side. He is still a badass, you know, karate kid and stuff like that. Gianni and of course his mother are finally a connecting couple. They're now having a relationship. It's a weird kind of moment because now Gianni becomes super protective of Miguel. He doesn't allow him to do some karate moves and stuff like that. And his overprotectiveness basically ruins the relationship because Miguel, at the end of the series, he kind of just leaves to go find his father, who, you know, apparently his father doesn't even know he has a kid. So there's going to be an interesting storyline of Gianni going after Miguel to bring him back to, you know, his mother and stuff like that. So I'm really interested to see what Miguel does. He does have that back injury, and they do the flying tornado thing, which I thought was kind of funny. Hurts his back, and he never really competes in the All Valley tournament, which leads to Hawk going up against Robbie and stuff like that. But his character is more just kind of backgroundish type in this series, with more of a father-son dynamic, which I thought was interesting, but just it's leaning into something bigger. So I'm interested to see what they're going to do with him in season 5. So, and that's pretty much where it leaves with the kids. They, like I said, they do their training. They go to the All Valley tournament, which, like I said, I'll talk about the ending explains of the series. But what the other main fracture, whatever you want to say, is of course John Kreese, who is the evil incarnate that is this representation of Cobra Kai. He's the reason that Johnny became who he was. He's the reason that all this is happening, and he is on an evil level. He's a very cartoonish character, but I think he's fun. I think he's entertaining. I think he gives a lot of dimensional reverence to a character that could be really childish and really stupid. He does have some stupid moments, but for the most part, he's very, very menacing, and then he visits his old friend Terry Silver, who's played by Thomas Ian Griffith, who is a guy that's basically reformed. He's a good individual. He regrets what he did to Daniel LaRusso. He has a wife. He lives in this nice house. He has a lot of riches and stuff like that. So he's basically the individual without the cocaine, without the drugs, and the toxicity barrels, and without Mike Barnes and stuff like that. And he somehow is basically twisted and turned into the evilness that he is from Karate Kid Part 3. Now, it's a shame that Thomas Ian Griffith is in this season because it is a terrible season. It's not very good. The bright spots are Thomas Ian Griffith and Martin Kove in the series because I think they're fun as evil characters. But I love the dimension that Thomas Ian Griffith goes through. And then there's a point where we finally seen this character of Terry Silver just become madmen and so on and so forth. Paul Walter Hauser, who plays Raymond, he's like the older guy that is like the partier. He's trying to include himself with the kids, but he's like my age, a 35 to 36 year old man or 40-year-old, whatever. And he completely gets his ass kicked, like completely like pummeled by Terry Silver's character, who is finally just kind of his cheese is slid off the cracker. He's now basically insane. I guess you could say he's turned back into his old self. And I think that's interesting because it would make for a good dynamic between him and John Kreese. But there is a turn that John Kreese has, which is really interesting, where he's starting to regret a little bit of his decision making. He is so pushing forward of trying to get these kids to stick up for themselves and to know mercy and so on and so forth, that when Terry Silver does something that is really dark and disturbing, John Kreese has a second thought in his brain, which is really interesting. You see his like evil smile kind of go down a little bit, which is kind of interesting. So it leads to the All Valley tournament, which is 2 episodes, and the All Valley tournament committee has decided that there's going to be 2 championships. There's going to be the girls and there's going to be the boys, as well as some like martial arts and stuff like that, brick breaking, some sword play and stuff like that, so on and so forth. So we have Eagle Fang, we have Miyagi-Do because they've broken up. We have, of course, Cobra Kai fighting, and then the other groups, the Hufflepuffs and Ravenclaws that you never see. And it goes pretty much how you think it's going to go. A lot of the characters on each side start losing, so on and so forth. Dimitri loses, and some other characters that pop up that have been brought in to be part of the group. And what really is interesting, like I said, Miguel is going up against Hawk as this Eagle Fang and, of course, Miyagi. It's a pretty interesting fight. The fights in this are actually quite good. They're actually long and really competitive. But Miguel, who I think he did on purpose, does a tornado spin, which causes him to hurt his back. And that's when he leaves because he gets in an argument with Gianni and stuff like that. So it leaves Hawk and Robbie, who's made it to the championship. Well, you think Robbie is going to automatically win it because he's such a badass. But Hawk finally gets his redemptive arc. He finally becomes what he is known to be, which is a true badass in his own right. And the men's championship fight is absolutely spectacular because it is no holds barred, it is angry, it is forceful, and Hawk ends up winning. Hawk beats Robbie, which is insane because Robbie, like, he gets a shirt ripped off and stuff like that. It's all for the ladies because he has like a 6-pack and stuff like that. It makes me very jealous because this kid is very ripped. It's crazy. It's a crazy fight. It's well choreographed. It definitely holds its own in any of these movies or TV shows that have been put out. But another thing about this fight, and another thing that happens earlier, is Robbie takes on Kenny because that's how the matches worked out. And Robbie goes full on like ballistic on Kenny, and he's supposed to be like the person that helps Kenny, and Kenny, to see good ways, see good fighting. Kenny freaks out, and that's when he becomes the bad Kenny or whatever. But Robbie loses. This leads to Tori and Samantha, who have been going back and forth. Tori is starting to have a little bit of dimension. Samantha is turning into this like a-hole. Gianni and of course Daniel have seen the error of their ways. They're working together. Daniel realizes that he needs to trust people. He needs to trust them to do their own thing instead of doing what Miyagi did, because Miyagi was always like, you'll find your own way, you don't have to necessarily do what I do, just find your own path. So the fight, once again, awesome, back and forth, awesome fighting, and so on and so forth. But in order for Miyagi and Eagle Fang to survive, they have to win both fights based on the point system. They win the first match, but Tori wins the last match, leading to Cobra Kai winning the whole thing. Now, you can be disappointed with the turnout because that means Miyagi and Eagle Fang are done, they're finished, and Cobra Kai will win. Terry Silver is going to open a bunch of shops and stuff like that. But Tori's character arc in this season makes you feel kind of happy that she won, because maybe it's going to change her character for the better. So just watching that character play out, watching her overall arc, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was a really unique experience, and it really kind of gives dimension to a season that didn't have a lot of dimension to start out with, which I thought was kind of cool. So this leads to the last episode. Everything's played out. The winners have been won. The losers have been lost, so on and so forth. Tori's celebrating with her Cobra Kai. They're going to go eat. She just needs to go in and get something. She walks in. She sees the referee, who's been doing some kind of shady stuff during the matches where people have been getting points that they shouldn't have been giving. They're getting losses and so on and so forth. But we find out why, and it's because Terry Silver has paid the referee off, so therefore he's been kind of swinging the sides for Cobra Kai, allowing them to get more points and stuff like that. So Tori sees that, which makes me lead into maybe what is she going to do for the next season? How is she going to play this around? I think that's interesting. I think that can make for the season much better, but I worry that they're just going to completely throw that by the wayside. Robbie reconnects with his father, Gianni, because of the whole thing with Kenny. He felt like he could help Kenny be a better person, be a much stronger person, but he just did the exact same thing that happens to Robbie. Robbie's kind of forgiving his father for what happens. That kind of ends there. Like I said, Johnny's going to go after Miguel to bring Miguel back to his mom, and this leads to the last two scenes, which are the holy crap moments of the entire season. First one is Daniel Russo's at Miyagi's grave. He's like, I'm not going to let them, continue, which means Cobra Kai, he's going to do something with, Miyagi-Do. He doesn't care if they lost. He's going to take down Cobra Kai. Well, I like that they did this because I like that they continue the idea of bringing characters back from the other movies and stuff like that. It allows this world to be more full and more satisfying. I would like to see, Mike Barnes comes into the mix because, of course, Terry Silver kind of mentions people that he knows that could come in and, work for Cobra Kai. And maybe Allie, I think it was Allie was her name. No, Allie was the Elizabeth Shue, the other character. Maybe bring some other characters, which would be cool. As he stands up from the grave, he turns around. He's like, I need your help. Can you help me? And, of course, it's Chosen from Karate Kid Part 2, as well as the last season of Cobra Kai. That's awesome. Bring back Chosen. I love it. He's a great character. He had a real great moment in the third season of Cobra Kai, so I'm really looking forward to that. We'll see how it plays out. We'll see how they use the character, how they kind of position themselves. Or are they going to do this in the secret? Are they going to do this kind of in the open? How is exactly going to work out? I would love to see this not be in the All Valley tournament at the end of the 5th season, but I'm sure it's going to do it because it's just the way this entire series is working. But the really big holy crap moment, the one that's the biggest, is John Kreese, who's having a little bit of inklings, goes to Terry Silver's house, and they sit down and they talk, and John Kreese is like, are we moving too quickly? And Terry Silver's like, I figured out my weakness, what my weakness is, and it's you. So what makes that really interesting is the weakness part is pivotal, because the one thing that has always held Terry Silver back is John Kreese's forcefulness. So the way he acts, the way he talks, the way he positions himself has always made Terry Silver in the background kind of a minuscule character. Well, Terry Silver, who's gone full evil at this point, has called the police. And everything that has happened that has been, Terry Silver's doing is now pinned on John Kreese. So the beat up of the Paul Walter Hauser Raymond character, he basically points John Kreese as being the person that almost killed him. The idea of, all the stuff that's gone on through the entire season has been pinned on John Kreese, and John Kreese is going to jail. That is a holy crap moment for the simple fact that now Terry Silver is in charge of Cobra Kai, and it's going to make for an interesting paradigm, because maybe I thought Terry Silver was going to be the good guy and kind of, take down John Kreese, but no, Terry Silver is completely evil. He's back to his old self. He does his little, ticks and stuff like that we know from the third movie. And at this point, John Kreese is going to jail. So that leaves for an interesting dynamic. What is going to happen with Johnny? What's going to happen with with John Kreese, Daniel Larusso, and Chosen, and how's the next season going to play out? Like I said, to finish this up, to finish the ending explains and the spoiler discussion, stuff like that, this season is built basically on those endings. It has such poor opening, poor middle, poor boringness of the infighting back and forth, that when those payoffs happen, and they're really good payoffs, they're kind of left in the dust because you have been going 8 to 9 episodes of all this meandering back and forth, and when they eventually come to a full conclusion, it's like, That's awesome, but I had to wait so long to get there. It's really stupid and unsatisfying, and it really shows you that these writers once again just need to find a new drive and a new dynamic to push the story forward. You know, some of the best episodes in the series have focused on different dynamics of characters and how they move themselves forward and how they push forward who they are and what they are. You know, the story with Johnny's best friends and the one friend who has cancer or whatever he has and he's dying. That's a really powerful episode just on the simple fact of what it's trying to do. But when it comes to just the same stuff they've been doing over and over and over, most people like myself, and there are people in the comments, don't want to see that anymore. They want to see something different. They want to see the series evolve from just the All Valley Tournament, because we have 4 seasons of All Valley Tournament and 2 movies with All Valley Tournament. And I think the Karate Kid Part 2, as weird and off-putting as that movie can be sometimes, it had a really cool payoff at the end between Chosen and Danny Larusso, but we'll see how it goes. Like I said, I'm still invested. I'm still going to watch season 5, but if it repeats the same mistakes as season 4 or 3, I think I'm going to fall off the boat. So that's just my honest opinion. So that's kind of where I land on season 4 as a spoiler discussion, ending explains. I hope that kind of helped you kind of get a concept of what the season is. I hope you've watched the season so you kind of are with me when I'm talking about these things. But yeah, like I said, 6 out of 10. Could have been much better. Could have been way worse, but could have been much, much better, unfortunately. So anyways, that'll do it. That'll be my spoiler discussion, ending explains, of the 4th season of Cobra Kai. Thank you so much for watching. Comment below, what did you think of the 4th season? What was your favorite part? What was your least favorite part? Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? All that good stuff. Otherwise, thank you so much. If you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell. Top the fun is coming next. If you like any of these videos, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.